Let's face it, mid-size trucks are not exactly mid-size anymore. With each new generation, they're getting bigger and bigger. Two such trucks that have entered new generations are the Ford Ranger and the Toyota Tacoma. These two are arguably the most popular mid-size trucks that are on sale today. So out of these two trucks, which one is better? Let's go for a drive and find out. Wouldn't you know it, as soon as I start filming, we get a very small rain shower here in Vancouver. Typical. Anyway, the Toyota Tacoma. Unfortunately, the V6 engine is gone. In its place is a 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, or you can get a hybrid 4-cylinder turbo engine as well. By the time this video comes out, the hybrid powertrain should be arriving in dealerships. So hopefully, in the near future, I'll be able to do a review on that one as well. But getting back to this turbo 4-cylinder, it produces 278 horsepower, which is the same as the V6, but it produces a lot more torque, 317 pound-feet. But those figures are with the automatic transmission. And by now, I'm sure that you've been able to tell that this particular Toyota Tacoma has a manual transmission. Now, before I get to the manual, I just want to say that this engine doesn't sound that great. In fact, it sounds quite trashy, if I'm being honest, but it makes up for it by being very powerful and feeling like as though it's not even trying to pull the weight of the Toyota Tacoma. The boost builds up at around 2000 RPMs and then it just pulls and pulls right up to the red line. So apart from the loud and not so spectacular noises that this engine makes, I do like how it has a lot of low-end grunts and how much power it has. Now, let's talk about this 6-speed manual transmission because, oh boy. So firstly, this shift lever moves a lot, particularly whenever you drive over a bump. It also reminds me of a shift lever from a 1990s pickup truck because that's just how it feels. Getting it into the next gear or the previous gear is easy. However, it feels very, very rubbery. But worse than that is the rev hang. Whenever you set off from a stop and rev the engine to, let's say, 3000 RPMs, you let go of the throttle, push the clutch in, and then you notice as the RPMs actually build up a little bit more, maybe about 250 RPMs, and then they just hold there for a good 2 seconds, almost 3 seconds, before they start to drop down. The rev hang is atrocious in this truck, and it's even worse if you engage the IMT function. Now, IMT in some other Toyota vehicles with manual transmissions, like the GR Corolla, is supposed to blip the engine on every downshift. In this one, I haven't really noticed it doing that. However, it does help in preventing you from stalling the truck. So from a dead stop, you can actually just gently and slowly release the clutch without touching the throttle pedal, and the truck will get moving. But as I mentioned, it does also induce more rev hang whenever this function is enabled. So that's why I've been driving it with the function disabled, because I absolutely hate the rev hang. And the reason why having so much rev hang is bad is because the engine's RPMs are spinning at a different speed than the transmission RPMs. So every time that you lift your foot off the clutch pedal, the engine's RPMs have to quickly drop to match the transmission RPMs. And that action makes the whole car jerky every time you shift. However, one good thing about this manual transmission is the clutch. The pedal is light, but it's not so light that you can't feel where the bite point is. So for everyday use, I actually do like the feel of this clutch pedal. But that's about the only thing I like about this 6-speed manual transmission. If I was getting a Toyota Tacoma, I would be going for the automatic instead. Fuel economy with this manual transmission is predictably worse than with the 8-speed automatic. This 6-speed Tacoma 4-wheel drive is rated for 13.2 liters per 100 kilometers in a city and 10.3 liters per 100 kilometers on a highway. Predictably, the Ford Ranger 4-wheel drive gets better city and highway fuel efficiency ratings with its automatic transmission. Of the two, of course, I was able to get much better fuel economy in the Ranger than in the Tacoma. Now driving the Ford Ranger, it has the same 2.3 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder EcoBoost engine as the previous generation. And just like the previous generation, it produces the exact same power, which coincidentally is the same as the Toyota Tacoma, with the 6-speed manual transmission that is. 270 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. Just like the 4-cylinder in the Tacoma, this one feels broadly similar. It has low-end grunts, boost builds at around 2000 RPMs, and it keeps pulling and pulling right up to the red line. The difference is that this engine doesn't sound quite as bad as the one in the Tacoma, nor is it as loud. You can also get the Ford Ranger with the 2.7 liter EcoBoost V6, but that one won't be arriving until later in 2024, at least for the Canadian market. In the United States, I believe that it is already available. And there is also the 3-liter EcoBoost V6 that's in the Ranger Raptor. This 2.3 liter engine, and in fact all other engines that are available in the Ford Ranger, are paired with a 10-speed automatic transmission. Now, the last time that I drove a Ford Ranger, I found that the transmission was very eager to get it into the topmost gear as quickly as possible. This was for better fuel economy. However, it also meant that the engine's RPMs were very, very low. This induced a lot of vibrations while driving. I also found that the transmission was a bit more hesitant to downshift whenever you pushed the throttle pedal just a little bit. It would just keep the same gear unless you pushed even harder, maybe 50% down, then it will downshift. Things though are different with the new Ford Ranger. Still the same transmission, as I said, 10-speed automatic, but the tuning has been tweaked a little bit. So of course it still tries to upshift as quickly as possible to get the engine's RPMs as low as possible, but it doesn't keep them so low that you feel the vibrations from the engine. And also, now when you put your foot down just a little bit, it does actually downshift and you get going at a much quicker pace. And on top of that, of course, it is smooth to change gears as well. Both of these trucks feel pretty similar to drive. The suspension limits body roll very nicely, the steering is fairly light but it is direct, and the brakes are nice and firm as well. It gives you confidence whenever you put your foot on it, but it doesn't feel overly assisted, so that it allows you to have smooth stops. So again, both of these trucks feel very similar when you're driving them while they're unloaded. But things are different between the two when you start towing and carrying stuff in the beds. In Canada, the 2024 Toyota Tacoma is only available as a double cab with either a 6-foot or 5-foot bed. But the bed length is tied to the transmission and package options. In the United States, the Tacoma is also available in the access cab configuration, but with fewer restrictions on the bed size apart from the transmission choice. The Ford Ranger in Canada is only available in the Super Crew configuration, which is the same as the double cab for Toyota, and 5-foot bed regardless of which trim it is. When properly equipped, the 2024 Ranger can tow up to 7,500 pounds and has a maximum payload capacity of up to 1,711 pounds with 4x4. The 2024 Tacoma has a max tow rating of up to 6,400 pounds and a payload rating of up to 1,570 pounds. These numbers are with the 6-speed manual transmission. With the automatic, the numbers are slightly higher, but don't match those of the Ranger. Though both trucks claim a 5-foot bed, the Tacoma's bed is just over half an inch longer and just under half an inch taller, but it's 3.5 inches narrower between the wheel wells than that of the Ranger. Both trucks have damped tailgates and both are available with power outlets in the bed, though this demo Tacoma did not have it equipped. The Ford Ranger has built-in side steps to make it easier to get into the bed. The Tacoma does not. Another big change for the 2024 Tacoma is the shift from leaf springs to coil springs on the rear axle. This change greatly improves the ride quality of the new Tacoma over the previous generation. When unloaded, the truck rides more smoothly over bumps without feeling as though it's crashing through them. The 2024 Ranger still has leaf springs supporting the rear axle. These provide better towing and payload capabilities, but interestingly, the ride is not that far off from the new Tacoma. Yes, it is a bit more bouncy and jittery over certain types of bumps, but on a whole, it's not too bad in this Lariat trim. The interior of the Ford Ranger is much more modern looking, not only compared to the previous generation Ranger, but also compared to the new Toyota Tacoma. Of course, the main focal point is this tablet-style touchscreen on the center dashboard. It runs Sync 4 infotainment system, which does allow for wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, and I find it pretty easy to navigate around. There's also a few apps in here that allow you to sketch and doodle on the screen, or you can just play around with the zone lighting that's around the truck. But one thing that I really like that Ford did is they've given us physical climate controls. It's not a whole lot. You just have temperature, fan speed, and whether to blow the air around the front or have max AC running. But if you do need more control, you do have climate controls built into the infotainment touchscreen. However, as I've said in my previous videos, in many previous videos I should say, I much prefer physical controls, and thankfully Ford has given us that. Even though it's very basic, I think it's just enough. So great job, Ford, and I hope that other manufacturers follow this. In terms of interior space, for my 6'4" height, plenty of legroom, plenty of headroom. I still sit really high up, so I have good visibility out the front, out the side, out the back. The exterior mirrors are very big on this Ford Ranger, bigger than the ones on the Toyota Tacoma, and also blind zones are really good. So overall, a nice interior in the new Ford Ranger. One of the first things that you'll notice as soon as you sit in the new Toyota Tacoma is the seating position. It feels normal. It doesn't feel like as though you're sitting on the floor like how the previous generation felt. The floor still is a little bit high up, so some people may have trouble getting in and out of it, but you can get side steps for this truck to make it easier to get in and out. But for me, it's not a problem for my tall height, that is. So for my tall height of 6'4", I have plenty of legroom and plenty of headroom. Although it doesn't feel like as though I have as much headroom in this Tacoma as I do in the Ranger, but overall I can't complain. And with this seat in its lowest position at the moment, I can still easily see over the front hood, see out the side and out the back, no problem. However, the blind zones, because of these B-pillars, are a little bit bigger in this truck compared to the Ranger. And as I said in the Ranger, the mirrors on the outside are not as big as the ones in the Ford. The second thing that you'll notice when you step inside this truck is the new design. There still is a lot of plastic in this truck, and if I'm being honest, I do think that the Ford does look better. But then again, it's not exactly a fair comparison because this isn't a well-equipped Tacoma and that Ford Ranger is well-equipped. But you do get a little bit more space for smaller items. There's a bunch of pockets in the door panels. You get a stand-up wireless phone charging pad, and the cup holders are decently sized. So overall, the interior space and the seating position of this new Tacoma is better than the previous generation, but the feel of this interior just isn't quite as great as it is in that Ford Ranger. The rear seats of the Ranger provide more legroom than those in the Tacoma. It's not exactly an F-150 back there, but I do feel more comfortable behind my taller than average driving position in the Ranger than I do in the Tacoma. The bench seats can be lifted in both trucks, but in the Ranger, it lifts up as one piece, whereas in the Tacoma, it's split 60-40. But the one in the Tacoma has an effective and odd way to hold the seats up with straps instead of the simpler pull tabs that you get in the Ranger. Additionally, the backrest can fold down in both trucks to make a flat surface, but you have to move the front seats forward or remove the headrest to fold them down. Of the two trucks, the 2024 Ford Ranger has a lower starting price. In its most basic form, you can get it for $41,870 Canadian. The 2024 Toyota Tacoma has a base starting price of $46,950 Canadian. In Canada, the 6-speed manual version of the Tacoma will cost you $48,540 Canadian, with the TRD Sport package costing an additional $3,800. The Ford Ranger Lariat trim starts at $53,705 Canadian, while the as-equipped price of this demo truck is $58,705 Canadian. The 6-speed manual version of the Tacoma is not the most well-equipped truck, but it has the right convenience features added to it. With the TRD Sport package, it has heated front seats and a heated steering wheel, 8-way power driver seat and 4-way power passenger seat, a power sunroof, a wireless phone charging pad, single zone automatic climate control, push button start, keyless entry, a 12.3-inch driver display, and an 8-inch infotainment touchscreen. This Ford Ranger Lariat is a little bit better equipped, with the truck having the same or similar features, in addition to dual zone automatic climate control, a B&O sound system, the 12-inch infotainment touchscreen that I mentioned earlier, leather trimmed seats, 10-way power driver seat, and an 8-way power passenger seat. Of course, these convenience features differ between the Canadian and American markets. In the end, I'll be the first one to admit that this isn't exactly the most fair comparison review that I've done so far. And that's because I can't really pick and choose what's available to me in the media press fleet. That's why I have a manual Toyota Tacoma that is not very well equipped versus an automatic Ford Ranger that is well equipped. I can't pick and choose which trim levels I get of each truck. I just have to make do with what's available. So hopefully in the future, Toyota Canada will put an automatic Toyota Tacoma that's better equipped than this one into their press fleet, and I can give you a proper review of this truck. But until then, all that I can say is avoid the manual Toyota Tacoma. I do not like it at all. The Ford Ranger, on the other hand, is great. It's spacious, quiet, comfortable, and capable. I just don't know how reliable that 2.3-liter EcoBoost engine is. If you do own a Ford Ranger with the 2.3-liter engine, please let us know how your ownership has been like. Comment down below. In the meantime, if you'd like to know more about either of these two trucks, I have a written review with a few more details about them over on my website. You can find that link in the video description or click on the pop-up banner right up there. And as always, I will see you in the next car, truck, or most likely it'll be an SUV next time. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you in the next one.